Hey everyone, it's LS, and this is going to be the patch 11.16 notes rundown. Not joined by Nemesis today, but you know, he's out in Seoul. But anyways, so we're just going to breeze through this patch. This is a patch that I believe is going to be affected by competitive, so it has been a while, so that should be some good news. Diana, passive damage to non-epic monsters decrease. Passive Moonsilver Blade. It's going to go down by 50%. So Diana has been getting picked quite a bit right now. And damage to non-epic monsters, I mean, I think this is totally going to be fine. I mean, her clear speed is kind of ridiculous, so it doesn't really matter that much if it just goes down by 50%. Diana's still going to be picked inside of the jungle when people are looking for an AP jungler that just has a pretty simple form of hard engage. She also has a lot of synergy with a lot of competitive champions right now, and so that's why you do see her. Fiora, E cooldown increase later, so she's actually getting a nerf, and I wonder if this is anticipation because the Worlds patch is coming up in just a couple of patches, and normally around Worlds, lots of tanks come back into the meta, and when that ends up happening, you already know that Fiora is obviously prime for just coming back as an anti-meta champion, and so maybe this is just a preemptive nerf. I do think that Fiora is kind of nuts in the hands of really good players. Unfortunately, for players in NA and EU, if you have too high of ping, you can't really utilize Fiora, and so she's a champion that doesn't get as much attention in the West as she possibly could deserve. So, Jarvan, the fourth, passive damage increased, our bonus damage ratio increased. Passive, martial cadence, 8% to 10% of the target's current health. Current health is always kind of a joke stat when it doesn't even matter if it has a minimum thing. Max HP is always obviously a lot better. Current health is obviously fine if it's the first time that you're hitting them and they're at max HP and whatnot. Our Cataclysm AD ratio is up by 30% AD. This is really good for AD Glass Cannon Jarvan, and so for like Jarvan support that goes support with like Senna or Seraphine or Soraka or any of those types of combos, this is also a really nice buff for that. But typically, Jarvan does not go Glass Cannon, but for the ones that do, he is getting quite a bit of extra power in his all-in. Much like Xin Xhao, Jarvan is a low econ jungler in the early stages that has a lot of good base power and just a lot of potency for running over the map, and so this is going to be a very big solo queue buff as well as even competitive, but I don't think that it'll magically make him come back. It could help move the needle for top Jarvan. Jhin, W damage ratio increased. Our minimum damage ratio increased. W Deadly Flourish, 50 to 190 to 60 to 200, so he's just getting a flat 10 on it. You do spam this inside of laning phase, so it does amount to a little bit of damage, but outside of that, not too much. Our Curtain Call, 20% AD to 25% AD. Long gone are the days where Jhin has 1,000 AD, so really you have to take this with a grain of salt. Obviously, if you do hit all of the bullets, it is quite a nice buff, and he has his execute, so it is definitely helping Jhin. I think Jhin personally is really bad. Also, I never noticed his blue eye before. That I thought his eye color was different, but maybe this is just weird. Doesn't mind me, whatever. Karma, passive on hit cooldown reduction removed. Cooldown reduction from abilities now flat. Q-based damage increased early. Okay, let's see. On hit cooldown reduction no longer reduces Mantra's cooldown by 1 second when she uses her basic attacks against an enemy champion. Cooldown reduction from abilities, 3.55 seconds at 1, 6, and 11 to just 5 seconds. Okay. So this is aimed at, I assume, top lane Karma. This is meant to take away from top lane Karma. It's meant to shift her more into the support and more into mid-roll. Q inner flame base damage is going to be down early, but it's going to go back to normal later on. Cooldown is down later, which is actually a very big buff. So I think all around this is actually just kind of a big buff. Q cost is also down by 10 mana. That's going to help her as well. Overall, I think this is actually a Karma buff for mid and support, especially if you go for the Enchanter Karma has lots of CDR, and so getting that 1 extra second shaved off, having the same damage later, just having more mana and all this other good stuff, and then this I think is going to actually overall be, well, it's a nerf at level 11, right? It's a nerf at level 11, but I think ultimately that's fine, because Karma's aiming to take over the game typically between 7 to 11. Lee Sin W Omnivamp decreased. Lee Sin came out of our 11.13 nerfs kicking. Okay, Arn Will. Omnivamp 10 to 30% to 5 to 25%. Now, this is definitely painful on the Omnivamp. It'll slow him down inside of the jungle. Inside of laning phase, there are matchups where you do stuff like 3-3-3, where you go 3 points Q, 3 points W, 3 points E. However, there are also just matchups where you don't get any points in W, and so obviously it'll hurt. If you end up maxing it, you're not getting the same reward. This is just definitely a big kick to Lee. Lulu, W cooldown increased. R cooldown increased early. W cooldown 15 to 11 to 16 to 12. R wild growth 110 to 80 to 120 to 80. So not the end of the world. Obviously the W whimsy, it's not an ability that you immediately cast off cooldown until the later stages of the game, and so later on it is going to be a nerf. The cooldown is already so large early on. The chances of you immediately casting it during that 1 second window when it's such a conditional spell, both for defensive and offensive purposes, just not really that likely. Maokai, passive heal increased, E detonation damage decreased. Top Maokai has been struggling to stay in lane even with his tank builds. Okay, so passive sap magic, heal 5 to 65 plus 5 to 13% max health, level 1 to 18, to 5 to 65 plus 7 to 15% of maximum health. Level, okay, so he doesn't end up getting this until way later on, but I assume that his early stuff is just up a little bit more due to healing and skill. Okay, so detonation damage 25 to 125 to 20 to 120. So they lower. Oh wait, what? They lowered. Okay, they lowered his. I don't understand what's going on here. I don't think this is magically going to make Maokai go back up into top lane, especially not when so many tank killers and just anti-tanks and everything like that ends up existing. That just doesn't make any sense to me. Nunu and Willump, base movement speed increased, damage ratio per snowball increased. So this is kind of bullshit because you guys know there are some challenger Nunu players on Korea that really it gets kind of weird. They are just Nunu mid lane players that go AP and they just roam permanently. It's a very unhealthy thing, and it strikes me really weird. I mean, they're saying that Nunu and Willump have hit a slump. The only slump that they've hit is the players that are running it down. Now, this is also interesting because Nunu, it must be a hard champion to track. I think there's no other champion in the game that has a player base, or it's actually the token troll champion. So some of Nunu's losses across all rank tiers are actually just due to inters. And I wonder how Riot actually calculates Nunu's win rate when knowing something like that. That's very bizarre. Snowball barrage, damage ratio per snowball 6% to 10%. That is a fuckload of, okay, sorry about that. That's a lot of, wow, total damage ratio. That is a lot of AP. That's actually kind of nuts on his E, because his E is his spammable ability, and that just doesn't make any sense why they're giving him, because the Nunu type of thing that goes into mid lane is AP variants of Nunu. It's not tank Nunu, it's not enchanter Nunu, it's not like any off-tank type of Nunu or anything like that. It's just very strange. So I don't know what Riot's obviously doing with that buff. Shaco, orange smoke visual effect remove are bug fixes. So this was the thing that made Shaco go down quite a bit. And so, I mean, that's pretty much all that there is to it. It doesn't really matter. I think Shaco is still obviously a phenomenal solo queue champion, and take that with a grain of salt. W Sivir, damage ratio increased later. Ricochet, 30 to 70% AD to 30 to 90%. Getting 20% AD on Sivir is definitely good, but you got to remember that Sivir is a champion that doesn't just go totally glass cannon unless you do the Dustblade of Drakthar build with Mirror Mana. And in the event that you do the Dustblade of Drakthar build with Mirror Mana, then I guess maybe in the later stages, yes, you're going to be getting some benefit, no doubt. Sona, new passive, mana cost reduced and aura mana refunds removed are also now hits minions and monsters. Okay. Power Chord, Sona's basic abilities grant her permanent accelerando. She gains +5 non-ultimate. Okay. Cost 75 to 95, 50 to 70. Now grants a deck of accelerando for each bolt that hits an enemy champion. Every shield you make are, wow, this is probably its own video in itself. Okay. Crescendo. No longer reduces Sona's basic attacks. Oh, no. Okay. Hits champions, minions, and monsters. Okay. There's no way, like, Jungle Sona is a thing, right? Is that? No, there's no way. Like, no, it doesn't make any sense. Granting ally, no, Accelerando. +5 non-ultimate ability up to 60. So they're just trying to make her way more scaling, and I think that that's fine. But Sona's always like a tough cookie to crack. So we'll see. Tahm Kench, passive base damage decreased early. Q base heal decreased. So Tahm, I think, is in the same boat as Renekton, where obviously you guys know that Tahm Kench in top lane previously was basically one of the best neutralizers in the game. It's really hard to move him and stuff, and so as long as his team's winning, he's going to win as well. But he's just very unfun to play against, and so Tahm is getting nerfed a little bit, but he's still up from where he was at originally. Base heal on the Tongue Lash is also down by just 5. I don't think these are the things that are necessarily making him ridiculous. I don't know if this actually interacts with the CSing. I doubt that it does. Vladimir, passive AP bonus health conversion, increased bonus health to AP. Okay. Very big, nice Vladimir buffs. Very excited to coach Elite 500 at a later point in time. Xin Xhao, basic attack damage decreased. It's just down by 3. I don't think this is going to be the end of the world, but he is a champion that auto-attacks a ton, so it is actually going to be damage missing basically at all points of the game. Ziggs, base mana increased. E-base damage per mine decreased. Okay, the mine is not what makes Ziggs broken. Not whatsoever. It's the satchel charge, and obviously it's the Q. And then having his mana... Okay, so his mana is going down, or his mana is going up at level 1. Which doesn't make any sense. The damage being missing on the hex tech. Okay, the slow is also negligible. The slow really doesn't do anything. I mean, you could argue that the slow helps you land the Q, but not really. I mean, you're landing the Q if you're good enough with Ziggs anyway. These just seem like buffs that are just there to satisfy people. Okay, Dark Seal. Dread AP per glory stack 5 to 4, and then glory stack loss on death. Okay, Dark Seal is now harder to get, whereas before it was just going to actually be Mage Eyes, but now Dark Seal is now inherently a riskier item. This is probably just meant to dissuade the early Dark Seal starts, which are just variations on the Corrupting Potions or any of those, you know, Doran's Rings, Doran Blades, Doran Shields, etc. openings. And obviously a lot of mages in mid lane can get away with Dark Seal plus refillable. Redemption is being overshadowed by other enchanter items. That's not entirely true. The heal is going up by a pretty paltry amount, 20 at 20 early on, and then 400 based on allies level. And then the cooldown doesn't matter. I mean, you're not casting it twice in a team fight, so it really doesn't do anything. Vandal City Clash. Make sure to get the Patron Clash tier list. It will be out a day after this video goes live on my Patreon. You can find that in the info below. And that is pretty much it. So we are going to get to the skins. And Evelyn can sit on my face. Let me tell you that much. Okay, so honestly, I'm not really sure what she's into, but she does look like she's a little bit kinky. So, you know, I mean, I'm not, you know, maybe she's into like BDSM in the forest. Honestly, I have no idea. But what is this? Is this Maokai or Malphite? Okay. Honestly, I think all of these skins are so cool. I think this is one of my favorite skin lines in the entire game. Old God Warwick. Okay. So I don't know the lore on the whole Old Guard stuff. I also don't know who that is. But it looks like, you know, I mean, this is probably guy in chat. But it's totally fine. What is this? Prestige Edition? No, it's not Prestige. Oh, it's Coven Cassiopeia, but it looks like a Prestige Edition, doesn't it? Why is she wearing so much gold? Also, I wonder what she is doing here. Did she just ult this guy, or did she just spit on him? I mean, she can, you know, she can do that right here. You know what I'm talking about? Seems like everyone in the back, however, has been ulted already, so her ult's probably on cooldown here. Oh, no, this guy's ulted too. Oh, he's getting ulted. He's getting turned to stone right now. Okay, but she doesn't even look like... Okay, it's fine. So it's actually her saliva that turns you to stone. It's not the screech itself. That's totally fine. Okay, so, you know, just let me copy your homework a little bit, as this is obviously Varus's stance, and clearly she is just stealing it. So Coven Ahri is stealing it. I thought Evelyn was the one that was stealing it. Honestly, Ahri can, you know, I mean, she's clearly an expert with playing with balls, just like Varus is. So definitely not a big deal to see her, you know, controlling this, about to throw it at this guy. And this guy honestly seems like he was a little bit too excited. Okay, so Coven Ash and then Prestige Edition LeBlanc. Coven Ash does look like some honestly, it's giving me like Sylvanas vibes or something. I don't know what else. And then okay, Prestige Edition Coven LeBlanc. It does look a little bit creepy. I will be honest with you. It does look like it's something like out of Twilight, and I do believe that that is pretty much it. So I think this was actually probably my fastest patch rundown that I've ever done. I hope that you guys did enjoy it. There were some notable changes, but actually it was kind of, from a competitive standpoint, all that matters is if players will actually start picking Nunu, and then the other one is obviously Sona. Karma is definitely a nice change. Jarvan could maybe see the light of day, but other than that, it seems like it was ultimately a pretty reserved patch. Vladimir change is very nice as well. Definitely nothing to be understated. Every other change that they did to champions and things of that nature, it's not going to affect competitive. And obviously solo queue, everything's going to be a very light touch. So that is pretty much it. Lee Sin hopefully is gone for good now. I know a lot of people have been clinging on to him for dear life because they don't want to see him go. He'll probably be brought back by Riot at a later date, so fret not on that one. And that is pretty much it. I know it was 3 weeks between the patch notes. That was a little bit weird, but we will have the next 2 ones on T1 Fighting here in 2 weeks. So I will see you guys all then. Bye.